Hi everyone, this is BritSimon. So I want to talk to DV2021 winners at the moment with regard to the lawsuits. I've had a number of questions from people, and I respond to them. I'm not quite sure if people are understanding how serious things are at the moment in terms of what the position is. I think there was a lot of happiness and joy when we saw, for example, PP 10014 revoked. We started to see, for example, Algeria embassy very early on, back in March, scheduling some cases, etc. But if you're paying attention and you're watching the data and you're watching the number of 2NLs coming out, 2NLs meaning the interviews being scheduled, and if you're struggling with getting answers from KCC, you should understand by now that there is a very serious situation going on that will, for the vast majority of you, mean you won't get your visa. Okay, it's as simple as that. You're not going to get your green card for the majority of you. Okay, blunt statement. And I need to be blunt with you because some of you just aren't paying attention. It is as simple as I'm saying right here. So why am I saying that? Okay, well, for those of you that are watching the statistics being gathered and presented on Save Diversity Visa, we're watching the numbers daily, right? And we can see the number of 2NLs, and there's been about 2,500 cases scheduled for interview at consulates around the world. That's over 4,000 people, probably nearly 5,000 people involved in those cases, right? And many of those people will be refused. That's fine. That's normal. It's not great, but that's what the situation is. Some will be issued. At the moment, there is a printing problem, by the way. So some people have been to an interview and they're finding there's a delay in getting their visa. Please, for those people, just remain patient. There's some sort of printing problem with visas. Of course, there is. It's that sort of year. And so roughly about 5,000 people are scheduled, up to and including the month of June. The next interviews we see will be for the month of July. And we have July, August, and September. And they're probably going to schedule, I would say, less than 1,000 interviews in July. And probably the same in August and September. Less than that, far less than that, right? So if they schedule, let's say, 3,000 more interviews, let's say 6,000 people at most in July, August, September, and they process the nearly 5,000 cases that are there, that'll be about 11,000 people going through the process, and roughly 9,000 or 10,000 visas will be issued by the end of the year. So that's only 20%, less than 20% of the total allocation, which means more than 80% of you are not going to get your visa. Okay, I hope that's clear. That's my reasoning. That's my explanation as to how bad things are right now. To add to that, KCC are not responding very well to requests. The documents procedure is as screwed up as it's been for the last 2 years. More than 2 years now. They've not got that situation right from day one. It was badly implemented, badly conceived, and it is affecting things. Of course, the visa bulletin is current for most regions and probably will go current, by the way, in the next few days for the other countries, Egypt, Iran, and Nepal. It'll probably go current. But the reason it's going current is because Charlie Oppenheim is being told by KCC that there are very few cases ready for scheduling. And the reason there are very few cases ready for scheduling is not because people are not submitting their cases, it's because KCC are not processing those cases and haven't processed those cases in the past. And the communication from KCC is appallingly bad. The organization at KCC with the two separate departments is a terrible decision that continues to affect us. So the way they're organizing cases, by the way, for scheduling is they're taking lower case numbers that have had their cases processed with DS260N documents. Lower case numbers are being scheduled, and if you look at the data, you can see that in the low case numbers, there's nothing like the numbers we should be seeing being scheduled, but there is more chance of being scheduled if you have a lower case number than if you have a higher case number. And if you haven't got your documents ready for scheduling, if your documents have not been processed, then you have zero chance, no chance at all of getting scheduled for an interview, right? Okay, so that's all the background. That's the bad news, and I have to be blunt with you. I have to be honest with you, because honestly, some of you are in a daydream that everything is suddenly going to work out fine and you'll be okay. Some of you, there's plenty of you that do understand how serious things are. So what can you do? You can either sit and wait and watch for this car crash to happen in real time, and at the end of September, you'll be wondering what the hell's going on, because the government will tell you your case is finished, and that's the law. That's what will happen. We have the Go case that is going to go before Judge Mehta, hopefully by July, and they will ask for a preservation of visas, which may or may not happen. But I think it's important to understand that the preservation of visas that happened for DV2020, the 9,095 visas, those visas were preserved by Judge Mehta because he was basically trying to retain the status quo for at least some number of visas. He wanted to protect some number of visas so that he could later make a decision. As we know, he's taking a very long time to make a decision. And so far, he's not told the government whether to issue those visas or not. And so although there has been a preservation of visas in DV 2020, so we can point to that as something that is likely that Judge Mehta is likely to do again, we have not seen Judge Mehta say, yes, go ahead and release those visas, process and issue those visas, even though the end of the year finished on September 30th of 2020, right? So we haven't seen the case, the case where that actually has gone through. I'm hopeful that will work. The lawyers are hopeful and pretty convinced that will work, but we don't know. We haven't seen it for sure. We could get a nasty surprise. And if we get a nasty surprise in DV 2020, then that same nasty surprise is in store for DV 2021, because it's the same judge who will be applying the same principles of law. He's not going to act one way in DV 2020 and then completely reverse himself on DV 2021, right? So DV 2020 is and always has been, a good spearheading for DV 2021. And, we've had the arguments in DV 2020 and we've won many of the arguments, but we've not won the most important, crucial argument yet of actually issuing the visas, right? Okay, so I'm hoping that's making sense. All right, so if you're understanding the sort of the thought process that I'm going through, we know the Go lawsuit is going to be, helpful to some extent in terms of arguing this case again. But what else can you do? Well, there's the Curtis Morrison lawsuit, and it's really that lawsuit I want to talk to you about today. Curtis Morrison and his colleagues, Rafael Arena and others, have said that they're going to file a new lawsuit from at the beginning of next month. I think it's the 6th of next month, which would be June. Actually, I can check that. So yes, they plan to file the complaint on June 6th of this year. The deadline to participate in that lawsuit is May 31st. That's the end of this month. So about nearly 3 weeks from now. And people will say, well, lawsuits are expensive and I can't afford that. And, why should I have to have a lawsuit to preserve my chances? Well, what I'm trying to say to you is your chances are almost gone, right? You're not going to get your, many of you are not going to get your green cards. 10,000 people will, roughly. That means there'll be 45,000 visas wasted. 130,000 people were selected for processing this year. So there are going to be many, many thousands of disappointed people that won't get one of the few visas that are issued this year. Okay? So the lawsuit isn't guaranteed to work. It will help some people, I believe, because when the lawsuits go in front of the judge basically will ask the government to give a report on any named plaintiff on that lawsuit. And so there'll be some sort of list drawn up, and the government will have to report what actions they've taken on this case and this case and this case and this case. And they'll do it en masse, as it were. They'll say, there's 500 people who are ready for scheduling, and those people, 450 of them have been scheduled, or whatever, right? Depending on how many people are on the lawsuit and depending on, what work they're doing. But the government, when they're in court with, with a judge on a mandamus lawsuit, it's an interesting thing. You almost don't have to win the case in order to win the battle, right? You don't have to have some big judgment, in order to get some benefit from the lawsuit. So there will be various benefits from the lawsuit simply because it will encourage the government to work on your case and then report that to the judge to show that they've done something. That's roughly what will happen, and that in itself is going to be useful for you, whether we win some sort of big decision or not. Actually having a lawsuit that pushes your case will be helpful. But let's talk about the money side for a minute. The lawsuits are expensive, there's no doubt. I mean, I think I've probably told people before. My own application for an H1 visa before I got my green card cost me and my family, because I was going to be working for a family business, well over $10,000 in legal fees, right? Well over $10,000. And in fact, I had an abortive application the year before where I was trying to get the same thing, but I had to spend a few $1,000s to put in an application, and then wasn't picked in the H1 lottery. So legal fees in this country are expensive. The legal fees for Curtis Morrison's lawsuit, he set the price at $1,500 per family, regardless of the size, on this particular lawsuit, and he's calling it the big lawsuit or something. The big mandamus lawsuit, right? Multi-participant big mandamus lawsuit. Good name, Curtis. And I'm going to talk about the big aspect in a minute as well. So because there is an aspect of that that's important. But anyway, it's $1,500 per family. That's not, frankly, in legal terms in America, that's not very much money. It's an absolute fortune for a lot of people. And so Curtis and his colleagues have put some thought into how to do that. And I have to say, I'm pleased and impressed that they've structured things in such an achievable way. So what they're asking for people to do is, for most people in most countries of the world, you will pay $500 upfront to be a participant on the lawsuit. $500, I've paid more than that for a meal, right? It's not expensive in American legal terms. It's a couple of hours. If you're lucky, it's a couple of hours of talking to a lawyer. It's not very much money. So again, I fully understand that's a lot of money in other countries. I'm not trying to minimize it, but you have to try and think in American terms, in terms of what that value is over here, not what that value is in Ethiopia or something, because that would be a tremendous amount of money. I understand that. But anyway, $500 is what they're expecting up front, and then the remainder of the $1,500, $1,000, would be paid only once you enter the USA as a green card holder, right? In other words, only upon success of the case. Now, whether you feel Curtis Morrison's case helped you or not, that money will be due, right? That further $1,000, that will be due, whether you think it was Curtis Morrison's influence or not. Basically, he's going to be involved in your case. He's going to help your case as much as possible. And if you get your green card, then that other part of the money is due. What he's done additionally, though, is that for certain countries, where he's obviously aware of the finances, and he's saying for DV2021 selectees, let me get the wording of this precise, residing in, residing, well, he actually doesn't say in. I could help you with your English, Curtis, but never mind. For DV2021's selectees residing in Cuba, Iran, Nepal, Venezuela, Yemen, or in any country in Africa, the initial payment to participate will be $0, and the remaining balance of $1,500 will be due in 3 consecutive monthly installments of $500 upon the DV's selectee's entry into the USA. In other words, there is no upfront cost. The $1,500 is still the same, but only when you come into America, and paid over 3 monthly installments. What's the downside of you being a participant? If you're in Africa region, for example, if you're a resident in Africa, there is no downside of being on the lawsuit if that's the financial terms, right? There's literally no downside. For people in other countries where you have to pay the $500, that's not a lot of money. Even if you put that in European terms, that's not a lot of money for those, for many of the European countries. Asia, South America might be a little bit difficult, although there's several countries accepted there. Okay, so you understand my point. The $500, if you have to pay it, is not that much money in American terms. And if you're in one of the countries, and I'll read the list again, if you're in Cuba, Iran, Nepal, Venezuela, Yemen, or in any country in Africa, then the initial payment is $0, and you just pay later when you come in. And bear in mind that when you come in, you're going to get a job, you're going to start earning money in American terms. Then $500 a month, it'll be it's not going to be nothing. I'm not suggesting it's going to be nothing, but it's not that much money. So from a financial point of view, there's very little point not to do this, right? From a will it benefit you point of view, look, if your chance is almost zero now, which for many of you the chance is almost zero, this is an improvement above a 0% chance. Do you understand that? It might help. I'm not saying it will help. I'm saying it might help some of you. There is a potential downside here, and I said I'd talk about the big wording here. Curtis calls this the multi-participant big mandamus lawsuit. Let's say I believe there's only time to schedule 10,000, schedule and process and issue 10,000 visas. Let's say 20,000 people sign up for this lawsuit, right? How's that going to work? I mean, there isn't enough time. Okay. It's possible that because you're a named plaintiff on this, it might actually change the way the embassies and KCC are actually working. So it's possible that it would increase that number, that we might see more than 10,000 visas issued if there are enough named plaintiffs on this lawsuit. It's also possible that this would be an additional driver to get some sort of provision, like we saw in DV 2020, for some visas to be set aside for later issuance. Named plaintiffs on cases filed before the deadline are in a much stronger position than non-named plaintiffs or plaintiffs that file after the deadline. The September 30th deadline is what I'm talking about. So, if you're in the court system, you're asking for court protection. You're asking not only for mandamus protection. Mandamus means do your job, government employee, but you're not only asking for that, for them to do the job, but you're also asking the court to protect you, right? And if you filed that prior to the deadline, September 30th deadline, then you've got some potential protections from the lawsuit itself as well. And it may be that becomes useful. So if you just weigh things up, your chances are almost zero. For many of you, you're not going to be happy with how this DV 2021 is going to go. The lawsuit is relatively affordable, and for some of you, it's absolutely, completely affordable because your country is on one of those exception lists. Any country in Africa, I'll read it again. Cuba, Nepal, Iran, Venezuela, Yemen, or any country in Africa. Thank you, by the way, Curtis and Raphael, for understanding the financial aspect, the financial burdens on people around the world, and And I know there are going to be people bitching about, well, I live in Germany? Why do I have to pay the $500? Pay the bloody $500. Don't bitch about that. Understand and empathize with people that come from countries where their income is $2,000 or $3,000 a year. And don't tell me, living in Germany, that you can't afford the $500, and that you're complaining about that. I don't want to hear bitching about that. Right? But anyway, thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Raphael, for structuring this in such a way that's affordable for plenty of people. And whilst Curtis and Raphael haven't done a massive pro bono effort in the past, as some of the other lawyers have done, this is as close as you can get to a pro bono effort. They are putting their money where their mouth is in terms of their belief in their ability to succeed. Yes, they will make a lot of money from this, but I know, I can see evidence that they've set up a very big organization to onboard and help all these clients. So I don't object to that at all. And they're lawyers, they're good lawyers, they deserve to earn money, and that's how things work, right? I don't work for, in this job, in BritSimon job, yeah, I work for nothing. But in my main job, I don't work for nothing. I expect to be paid, and so do you, right? Whatever job you do. Okay, so there are many other aspects of this which you can read about. Let me just put the link up here. So go to curtismorrisonlaw.com/DV2021 and read about the terms, right? There's some frequently asked questions answered on there. There's really no concerns. A couple of questions I've been asked about this is the government going to retaliate against me? Is there any downside? Will this affect any future application? The answer in all of those cases is no. No, it's not a bad thing to sue the government. Some of the government employees will actually appreciate you doing that, because it brings clarity to their situation. They're decent people. They want to do their jobs, and for whatever reason, they're not able to do their jobs, right? Because of control from above or whatever. And so so this is not. Can you imagine how frustrating it can be? Let's say you're a car mechanic and you turn up for work every day and you want to fix cars. And your bosses say, well, you can't fix any cars today. We haven't got any oil in the cupboard. We haven't got any tools for you. And we're gonna see 3 cars a month, right? We're only gonna fix 3 cars a month. Can you imagine how frustrating that would be? That's the position of the government employees at the moment, working for the embassies and to some extent for KCC. You may not agree with my perspective about that. That's fine. You're welcome to be wrong. But that's the reality. Some of them will be genuinely frustrated, and they will be more than happy that the government is being sued, so that they have the ability to do the job that they want to do. There are some of them that don't want to do that job, and they're probably happy that Trump came along and everything else. But that's not the majority of people, right? Most of them take pride in their work and want to do the job, and so this will help them. So there's no question that you're going to be somehow disadvantaged by joining the lawsuit. It may help you, it won't hurt you. Why wouldn't you do it? I fully believe the Go lawsuit will also help. There's some excellent lawyers on both sides here, on all sides. We've got some excellent lawyers that really have taken the time to understand the DV program, and far better than a year ago. I would have said none of these lawyers understood the DV lottery program at all. None of the very few lawyers in America understand the DV lottery program for reasons that I could explain. But they have really taken the time to understand it, and they've worked hard for it. They've pushed in lawsuits, etc. They have done a tremendous job. And so, much gratitude towards all of the team at Ayla and Charles Cook and Greg Siskin, Jeff Joseph, Curtis, Raphael, all of them. They've done an amazing thing. So, I don't prefer one lawsuit over another. I'm just saying at the moment, the only lawsuit that you can join is this one. The financial terms of this one are affordable. Being on a lawsuit is better than not being on a lawsuit. And if there's any chance at all, of improving your chances, then I would take it if I were you. Okay. So stop procrastinating. Stop asking me questions, should I join the lawsuit? I'm not interested in any more of those questions. The answer is yes, you should join the lawsuit. Really, whatever position you're in. If you're currently scheduled for an interview, okay, you probably don't need a lawsuit. If you've got a very, very low case number and you've got the ready for scheduling email and your embassy is working, then maybe you want to take your chances and don't join the lawsuit. But frankly, for $500, why wouldn't you? Just in case. So, so there you go. All right. So I hope that's all clear. There's the link. That's my advice. And I've explained the downside if you don't do it, right? So I'm not trying to scare you into do it, and I've got no financial, horse in this game. I've got, it has nothing to do with me financially or any other way. I'm just trying to tell you what I think is the right decision for people as I see it right now, with what I'm observing is going to happen, right? In terms of what's going to happen in the rest of DV 2021. Okay, I think I've probably covered it in as much detail as I want to cover it. That's my position. I'm going to try and spread that word, and hopefully, it makes sense and you understand what I'm trying to say there. Okay, everybody, thanks for your time today. This is a DV 2021 conversation, obviously. Let me just cover a couple of things. I haven't forgotten about DV 2020. I think about it every day, literally every day. I think about DV 2020, but we're still waiting for the decision from Judge Mehta in the Gomez case. That hasn't changed. DV 2022 is kicking off now. DV 2022, people watching this are probably wondering, what the hell is this guy talking about? Why is he talking about lawsuits? You probably don't know yet what a difficult time it's been for DV 2020 and 2021 selectees because of the COVID crisis. And unfortunately, I think these conversations, these tough conversations about difficulties we're seeing because of COVID, I think these conversations are going to continue into DV 2022 processing. I'm sad to say, I don't think things are suddenly going to get better in the next couple of months. I see plenty of COVID calamity and crisis going on around the world. And whilst there is that COVID crisis, it will continue to impact, processing. And I believe it's going to impact in DV 2022 as well. But it's too early right now to talk about lawsuits for DV 2022 or anything else. It's very early. The processing hasn't started yet. And right now we need to focus on 2020 and 2021 and try and get those cases through as much as possible. And most particularly DV 2021 at the moment, because there is a window of time where they are legitimately able to get their case through. Whereas DV 2020, frankly, as I've said before, it doesn't matter whether the decision from Judge Mehta comes today or in a month's time. It makes no technical difference. It's frustrating to wait, I understand that, but it makes no actual difference. And so, so DV 2020 at the moment can, just has to wait for Judge Mehta's decision in the Gomez case. Okay, that's all, guys. All right, hope that was helpful. I'll speak to you again soon over the next few days. All right, bye-bye.